If you're here, then some of the functions of the Jamelo ME-04 multi-effects unit and other similar multi-effects units are eluding you, or maybe you're just here to learn. Either way, there's a lot of function to this unit, and some of them aren't so obvious on how to access. I'll be going over how to use this unit as completely as I can, from the very basics to as advanced of features as I could figure out. There will be chapters on the timeline to find the function you want, however, it'll probably be helpful for both of us if you watch the whole thing. So first of all, let's start with the terminologies I will be using. Starting on the top side of the unit, we have the power switch, charging/OTG recording port, in or input jack, out or output jack, which can also be used as a headphone jack, though that may require an adapter in most cases, and then finally the expression and control port. Back on the face of the unit, we have the volume, pot, potentiometer, knob, or control. We have the LCD screen, sometimes shortened to just screen or display. Then we have the edit control, which is an encoder knob, so it can be rotated infinitely, and also be used as a button as well. So this will be often referred to as the encoder control or knob, or the edit control or knob when rotating, and will possibly be called the encoder or edit button when talking about the press function. And finally, we have the left and right foot switches. I'll often say to select things, which usually means press the encoder knob while something is highlighted. At some points I will mention power cycling, which is a fancy term for turning something off and then back on again. Some people may think that this was all unnecessary to explain, but some people don't know this basic stuff, especially if they don't speak English as their first language. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about the basic functions to navigate the unit. First of all, flick the power switch to the on position to turn it on. Get the splash screen, and then it will go eventually to the main menu. To change what preset slot you're using, either turn the edit knob or press one of the foot switches. To adjust presets and settings, press the encoder button. This should show a corner outline over something on the screen. In my case, the preset select is outlined. Turn the encoder knob to change the setting you are selecting, and press the encoder knob again to enter the adjustment menu or option for that outlined function. At the top left of the screen, there is a volume level separate from the volume knob. This allows you to change the overall volume on a preset without changing the external overall volume. So as you turn this volume knob, this volume will not change, though the output level still will. The volume level on the home screen can be saved in each preset when changed. We'll talk about saving later though. To the right of that, there should be an icon showing that the system is detecting either a foot switch or an expression control when one is input. Well, that's not good. One weird thing is that this is actually detecting differently now. Okay, that was weird. So there is the icon shown when you have an expression pedal connected and it senses that it is connected. I unfortunately do not have a amplifier foot switch unit, so I don't really know what goes on when you use that. However, I did have a glitch a little bit ago where it was detecting this as a foot switch for some reason, and it was showing, I think, a joystick icon up there instead. But if you do get one of these units and have one of those amplifier foot switches, let me know what happens when you plug it in and what you can actually do with it. The system unfortunately skips over this icon, so it is not selectable to the best of my knowledge, even when an expression is input. Next, there is an SD card or floppy disk icon. This allows you to save your preset changes. So select it. Firstly, you can change what number save slot you are on and reorder your preset save slots. Next, we have the little yellow SD card icon. When you press this, that confirms the preset save. Then you can scroll through the text of the preset title. Turning the encoder knob here will underline the selected character in red. Press the encoder knob on the underlined character you want to change, where then the text will turn yellow and you can select what character you want from the menu below by turning the edit knob. Of course, press the edit button to confirm the highlighted character you want. When finished, go back to the yellow SD card icon and select it to finalize your save. Finalizing the save exits you back to the main menu, but pressing on one of the foot switches also does this without saving the changes. Something to keep in mind is that while making changes to a preset, you can switch to another preset, but doing so will undo your changes if they do not get properly saved first. So be aware of that and be careful when spending time editing a profile. Next, we have the system settings represented by a crossed screwdriver and wrench, which we will come back to later. After that, it shows the current battery life of the rechargeable internal battery for the unit in the top right of the screen. Moving down, you can change the current preset by selecting the preset number. I don't know how to stop using the selection function of the knob other than power cycling the unit and when exiting some functions like the preset saving. After that, it moves down to the effects chain. Grayed out icons are inactive modules, and colorful lit ones are currently in use. You can see these change as you cycle through presets. You can reorder these effects by hovering over the one you want to move and then holding the edit button. This should change the corner highlights green, which means you can now use the encoder knob to move the effects unit in the chain. Press the encoder button again to confirm the position. For those who don't know, changing the order of these modules in the effects chain can alter how your tone sounds, sometimes in little ways, sometimes in massive ways. One thing of note is that most of these modules are effects, technically including the amplifier and cabinet simulators. However, the last two options are a looper and drum machine, which do not share a lot of the common aspects I'm about to talk about, so I will talk about those separately in a bit. For now, to activate and adjust settings within the effects modules, hover over one and select it. This will bring up the submenu for that module. Many of them look the same, just with different settings within. They all start with the selector on the back button. Select this icon to return to the main menu. Next, the selector will go to the module selector in the center. This will allow you to go to the next or previous tone changing effect in the effects chain on the main menu. Next is the on-off button. This selects whether the module is activated or not when toggled. After that is the model of that effect category. Some modules will have fewer options than others, such as the noise gate only having one option, and the equalizer only having two options between a 6-band EQ and a 10-band EQ. Meanwhile, the OD/effects category has many different options. Below that are the model settings. These will change based on the selected model within the module. It's more rare, but in cases like the 10-band EQ, where there are more than 6 options, there will be little dots on the left side of the model option showing which page you are on. I also want to take a second to talk about the cabinet section separately. While it is included in the effects category, it has some settings that differ from the other categories that aren't hard to understand but are a little weird comparatively. This multi-effects unit has a closer to true cabinet emulator. There are more factors to a cabinet recording than the speakers they are made of. There's also the method in which the sound is being captured, which you can also tinker with in the settings. Under the cabinet model settings, you will first be presented with a mic setting. This allows you to change the voicing of the emulated microphone that would be capturing the sound of the selected cabinet model. So in real life, it would look something like this. Next is the position setting. This changes where that mic previously mentioned would be placed on a single speaker of the cabinet. The center of the speaker has a more brittle and bright tone, while the edge of the cone, of course, offers a darker and more bass-heavy tone. This is why most people just put the mic in the middle of the cone to get a better balance, which is also available as a setting. Then you also get a low and a high cut setting. This allows you to block off some of the extreme low end that makes your guitar and band mix more muddy, and then also block out some of the extreme high end that is generally unpleasant. Then of course you have the overall volume, which is kind of self-explanatory. Now let's talk about the built-in looper. To access it, start on the main menu, then go down to the effects chain till you hit the module that says loop. I believe this is the second to last module by default on all presets, but I may be wrong, but also as far as I could find, you cannot actually move it out of its position, so it should always be the case. Then to access it, you simply select it. This will then bring up the looper menu. We of course start on the back button, and then we move to the looper settings. But there is no on-off toggle button. Once you start to use the looper using the foot switches, it will activate and turn on its own. To record, press the left foot button. This will be represented by a red dot where the X was. To stop recording and start the loop, press the left button again. This will be displayed as a green play sign. To overdub record, press the left button again. This is represented by orange overlapping circles. And to stop the overdub recording, press the left button once more. When you overdub record, a blue back arrow should show up above the progress bar on the loop display. This means you can undo your last overdub. To do this, double tap and hold the left button. You will know you have successfully undid your overdub not only by the sound, but also by the back arrow now changing to a purple forward arrow. This arrow means that you can redo your undo if desired by doing the same double tap and hold control, and then the process starts again. You can pause your loop by pressing the right foot switch. This will be represented by a white pause symbol. To play again, press the left button. Pressing the right button while paused will do nothing. Pausing the loop will not save the loop's current position, and playing will start the loop over again from the start. You can delete your loop by double tapping and holding the right button. This will be represented by a white X. This cannot be undone to the best of my knowledge. If you have not overdubbed your recording, you can also delete the loop using a double tap and hold on the left button, though this one is a little weird sometimes and doesn't work depending on what recording and playback state you're in, so it's normally better just to use the right button typically. Under the settings, it starts with the bar labeled Rec. This is for the recorded input volume. I am unsure why you would typically want to adjust this unless you are trying to manually give your solo a boost over your rhythm in practice or something like that, but generally I don't really know. Tell me in the comments if you have any ideas why you'd want to do that. Next one is playback, and that adjusts the overall output of the looper module, so that one's also kind of self-explanatory. If you want the loop to be louder, then make the value higher and quieter lower. Loop sync is for synchronizing the drum machine to your looper to have them more closely work together. This allows the drum beat to start when you hit the loop record button. However, there doesn't appear to be any way to activate a count-in. It just starts when the loop starts. Loop mode is a bit strange. NR means normal record, where it will start the loop immediately when pressing the button, while AR means auto record, I think. I think this one tries to start looping as you start playing, but since it works so weirdly, I am generally unsure if that's actually how it's exactly intended to be used. I don't really suggest using AR mode, but if you do, tell me how you use it more effectively in the comments, because to me it doesn't seem to work very well. Now onto the drum machine. We again access it from the main menu and select it at the end of our effects chain. And we once again start on the back button. But then the cursor jumps to the upper bar with the yellow number next to it. Even though on this one there is a displayed on-off button. Even though this is the case, the drum machine works like the looper, where you need to use the left foot switch to turn the module on and off, and it will just activate on its own when it is turned on and off using the foot switches. The yellow number bar setting selects the genre of drum beat you were looking for, and then the bar below it selects the beat type within that genre. The settings below are drum and BPM. Drum is the volume of the drums, and the BPM is the beats per minute of the given drum style you have selected, or basically how fast the drums will be played. In this module, the right button does nothing as far as I could find. Of course, when synced with the looper, the drum machine is activated when the looper is as well, though the looper cannot be activated when in the drum machine module as far as I can find. Okay, so let's loop back around to the system settings. Again, these are accessed through the crossed screwdriver and wrench next to the battery indicator at the top of the screen on the main menu. Select that icon to access the settings menu. You will then be presented with a few different options, so let's go through them one by one. Input allows you to boost or cut the volume of the input jack. So if you're using a guitar with some vintage style pickups and they don't have quite enough output, you could boost them a bit here. Alternatively, if you're using something like active pickups, then they may be a bit too loud and you can take away some of that volume here. Next is Global EQ. This is a 3-band EQ that will constantly affect the sound output of the unit. I don't know if this exists to try and adjust for different amplifier or cabinet tones in voices, but it's there if you need it. Next is wireless. This allows you to turn off the discoverability and connectivity for Bluetooth. There may be other wireless features, but I am not fully for sure about that. After that is loopback. This is a setting that allows the unit to not only send signal, but also receive signal as well. I think this might be applicable for when you're using maybe some of the OTG functions of the USB-C port, but I haven't really gotten this to work as the pseudo audio interface like they kind of wanted. Usually when this thing receives signal, in my small experience using this as like the audio interface, it's usually just getting its own signal sent back to it, and then it makes a feedback loop. So I don't know exactly how this works or how it affects it, but it's there. And finally, we have factory, which gives you 2 more options. You can either factory reset your unit, which will wipe out all of your customizations and changes to get the unit back to how the company shipped it, and then there is the inspection menu. I haven't exactly figured out what all of these icons mean in this menu. I think this menu is more for customer support or the factory to be able to tell what's going on better in the unit. It's not super obvious what everything does and means. If you have an expression pedal, you can see the tip value change up and down as you adjust the expression. If you press the left foot switch, the input gets muted. And if you press the right, it turns off the wireless functions. Turning the edit knob changes this one value from 0 to 10. I don't really know what this value does at this time. And finally, pressing the edit button just highlights the 0 to 10 value for some reason. Like I said, I don't really know what all of this means. To exit the inspection menu, press both foot switches at the same time. Sometimes this is difficult and refuses to go back out of the menu. Other times it'll bring up the factory reset menu like that, in which case you just press the no and it's supposed to bring you back to the main menu, but that's weird. Okay, well there we go. Sometimes it will bring you to the options screen. Sometimes it brings you back to the main menu like it just did. The only other way that I have found to exit besides that is by power cycling the unit, and it doesn't seem to cause any damage to the best of my knowledge. Something that's not mentioned a lot about the unit by the company is that there is a built-in tuner as well. If you hold down both foot switches in the main menu, you will activate the tuner. The tuner has 2 options. You can change the frequency you are tuning to, and you can change whether or not the tuner will mute your signal when in the tuner. Then you use it like any other tuner. However, the function is a little weird on this one in my opinion. Instead of doing the standard dial every other company uses that is intuitive to understand and easy to read, these guys made it so that the tuner will show if you are flat or sharp, but instead of the dial, the bars keep moving, and the faster they're moving, the farther out of tune you are. When the bars start slowing down, then you're getting closer to pitch, and then finally the note will turn green when you are tuned to the right note. Though this tuner is also very picky, which means that it should be logically accurate, but it may be a little frustrating to tune with if you are absolutely perfect with your tuning. I mean, usually you should be, but this thing is kind of ridiculous sometimes with how accurate it is. Well, accurate, maybe, I don't even know. To back out of the tuner, just press one of the foot switches, either one works. Now I want to talk about the expression input. This area is a little frustrating for me, and the company isn't helping me out with it. Now, as lightly gone over before, this unit has an input for expression or foot switch control. I unfortunately do not have an amp switcher, so I can't speak about what those functions actually do. But I was excited to hook up an expression pedal to this thing, but I was actually a bit disappointed at what I found. When you plug in an expression pedal to the unit, an icon between the overall volume and the save icon will appear. And by default, the unit has the expression control the overall output of the volume on the unit, so everything including ambient trails from delay and reverb is cut off. And unfortunately, that's all I could get it to do. I believe I mentioned it before, but even though the expression icon appears, the selector jumps over the icon in the main menu, and if you can change the expression control and use it for other things, they don't make it obvious, and I haven't stumbled upon how to do that yet. I even looked through this unit's manual as well as the manuals of similar multi-effects units from other brands. While some did illuminate a feature not mentioned in this one's manual, none go into depth about the expression control. So basically, every one of these units missed out on a huge opportunity not incorporating the expression more, or at least not making it very obvious at all how to do so. So let's move on. These next sections go into more technical stuff. Since I am not getting much support from the company, it's possible I have missed features here, but I've done my best to try and show as much of these advanced features as possible. When writing this video, I was testing most of these features on Windows 10, and on my laptop I'm going to be using, for my demonstration here, I'm going to be using Windows 11. So those are the operating systems I am referencing, unless stated otherwise. But first let's talk about the Bluetooth function. To start, make sure the wireless is turned on in the system settings and in the factory inspection menu if you are poking around in there. Then the multi-effects unit should be discoverable by default. Use your device's Pair New Device feature to then find the unit. You should be looking for JME Stomp Box. Keep in mind though that for some reason my unit comes up with two separate things. The one that usually works is the one that shows up as a headset. Once connected, you are able to output external audio through the unit. I don't think you can control the volume of the Bluetooth signal on the effects unit, so you have to use the volume on the external device. As far as I can find, the Bluetooth only sends audio to the unit, but not the other way around. So from what I know, you cannot record audio from your guitar to your phone or anything like that using Bluetooth. Let me know if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, usually trying to record from Bluetooth doesn't work too well anyway. So let's move on to what should allow you to record. As lightly mentioned earlier, the USB-C port is not only a charging port, but also the OTG recording port. Keep in mind that not all USB-C cables work for OTG recording though. A lot of these cords are made with the bare minimum included to simply charge devices, rather than the full USB-C standard. So you may need a quality, fully USB-C compliant cord, or at least something that is designed to work with OTG features. However, while this is normally the case, my off-brand USB-A to USB-C cord I use for charging my phone also worked for connecting it to my computer. This was also the case with a few other cords I had lying around. So I don't know if this unit just works that well on Windows, or maybe it's because I also have the company's editor app for the unit on my computer. Maybe all these cables just happen to be compliant with the USB-C standard. I don't know. Either way, I didn't need the OTG adapters I bought for this unit, at least for working on the computer. However, to use the unit in Studio 1.5 as a direct interface, I still needed to access it through ASIO for all. As a tip, you should use a separate output rather than running the audio back into the multi-effects unit as stated a little bit earlier. When I first started using the unit, it was being used as sort of an audio interface, having an in and an output. But when I left the default settings, I started to get a delay feedback. This is removed when using a different output than the JME Stomp Box. Then you will not get that delay effect, and you can still monitor your playing with zero latency through the unit. Just remember to check the input levels in your DAW. My unit runs a little loud by default for Studio 1.5. Now onto my experience connecting the unit to my phone. I don't have many, if any, USB-C to C cables, so I needed to use my OTG adapters here to adapt from USB-C to USB-A back to USB-C again. I'm not entirely sure that the adapter was technically needed for this connection. I do also have the Manager mobile app for this device on my phone as well, so that may be part of it as well. It does seem like the adapter may be doing something in this case though, because the connection doesn't work when I use the adapter on the unit's USB-C port. It only works when I use the adapter on my phone's USB-C port in my case. I don't know if this is the case for everyone, but that's how it works in my situation. Then it's a matter of getting the settings to work on your phone and program. I'm using an app called N-Track Studio DAW because BandLab was complete garbage and didn't have a way to look into the inputs and outputs you're using. I'll have to bed a review on the Play Store, so that may change. But in this program, it gives me two main input options. Okay, well, it's giving me a third one here for some reason now, but I had A audio and OpenSLES. The only differences I could tell between these two inputs is that A audio lets you pick your device and OpenSLES doesn't. So I pick A audio, change my input device to the JME Stomp Box, and then I should be ready to go. The default device may be feeding it back into the JME Stomp Box, so logically you would want to change that to something like the headphone out or your device speaker out so that you don't get that feedback loop error again. But also, again, check the levels in the DAW to make sure that it is not clipping. Now let's talk about the Phone Manager app. Installing it seems to be a bit weird because it is only available on their site at this time. I explored this in my video about how easy this unit is to use video. You can scan a QR code or type in the URL based on the box that is provided. So, you know, poo-poo on the people who throw away their boxes right away. Then when I went to install the file, I got a warning that the file may be harmful, but I installed it anyway. So who knows, my info and identity may be actively being siphoned as we speak. It passed AVG's file scan, but I don't put a lot of faith in them anymore, but that's a different story. There was another menu not recommending me to install apps from alternate sources other than the Play Store, but after passing that warning, the app was installed and was called Stomp Manager on my device. The app doesn't require a wired connection. It can communicate to the device through Bluetooth. I did have some difficulty with the Bluetooth connection to the app from time to time. The Bluetooth connection from the unit to my phone works perfectly every time, but the app can be difficult sometimes. In fact, it's actually being difficult right now, not connecting. So if you need to try and test your connection, you go up here to this little USB icon, tap on it. For some reason, my unit shows up as JME Stompbox Blue. I don't even think there's a blue option for this brand, but whatever option is connected by Bluetooth should show up here. So you just tap on that and it should eventually connect. It looks like it actually didn't. That's kind of frustrating right now, especially when my batteries are dying for some reason. Are you kidding me right now? Not find useful device? This was not scripted. Are you kidding me right now? Did I leave this thing off or something? Everything's on, so I don't know why it's being a butthead right now. Okay, we finally got it connected again. Okay. Like I said, there can be some difficulties with the Bluetooth. The app allows you to control all the settings available on the unit, just in a more accessible way. Maybe not the factory settings, but almost all the settings. The only thing you can do on the app that you can't do on the unit itself is import and export profiles. To export, press the three-dot drop-down, then press export. Then you select which profile you want to export, and you click export. Then it will ask you to identify a spot in your system to save the profile. Once you select that, you then let it go you then have it do that, and you hopefully get an export success. As long as you have a connection, there shouldn't be a reason why this fails, but you know, who knows. Then to import presets, use the same three-dot drop-down, press import, then you select which file you want, then you choose which slot you want to replace with the imported option, press import, and preset import successful. You might not be able to see that down there on that far down on the phone, but it was successful. I just imported the same thing. So unfortunately, the app doesn't really have many exciting features other than what's already kind of included in the unit for the most part. I was kind of hoping for more expression control here, but if it exists, I couldn't find it. So now let's talk about the computer app. First of all, you need to install the app. You can find this at jameloaudio.com. There is already seeming to be some like scam alternative sites or something. Not fully for sure, but that's the official one that I know of. You need to go to, I believe, products. Let's see here, yeah. And then we go to software for the one you have, because then they also have their strip board one. I'd like to check that one out at some point as well. But we go into this one, and then we download for what we need, because this is the same site that you download for the phone as well. So we're going to download it for Windows. Once you get the installer downloaded, you need to run the installer, which will then bring up this menu, which will ask if you want to confirm your install. In my case, it's a reinstall because I already have it installed, but yours will be assumingly fresh. So click reinstall. It's going to ask you if you really want to install this program, because Jamelo is not a known publisher or common publisher of software. Click yes, and then we have our thing running in the background here. And then we wait for it to install. All right, then we can either finish or we can launch the program. Let's just launch it. So here is what we're working with. It currently says it was saying that the unit was not connected, but it recognized it. And basically this program can do everything the mobile app can do, but it has a little bit more up its sleeve. If you go into the AMP module and scroll all the way down in the model types, it would actually work. you will see that there will be 10 options named User Amp. These are for you to upload and save NAM files to the unit, or otherwise known as amplifier impulses. To install one of these files, you first have to have a NAM file, of course. Then you press the import button on one of the empty files. You go to where you have saved your file, which mine went to the last place I used because I did this for testing a little bit. Open that within the app, it says I'm preparing, and eventually it should export into the thing. Import, yes. And there we are. We now have this amplifier on the unit. Now, not only can you install amplifier emulators, but you can also install cabinet emulators as well, also known as impulse responses, or IRs. To do so, go to the cabinet module, and then scroll all the way down in the model, and you will have 10 more empty spaces. And you basically do the same process. Select an empty thing, press import, then you gotta find your file. Crap, I don't remember which frequency this thing wants. I think it was 48K. Then you open that file in here. Then once you open the file, it imports into the thing, should save onto your system. Now you should be able to use either the amplifier and the cabinet and any of the presets on your unit, and it should be able to be used anywhere, even once the app is disconnected. It's still there. Even though on the cabinet section there is an export button, I don't really know what it does. I don't know if it's actually supposed to be there, or if you could export custom low and high cut settings or something, but it doesn't seem to actually do anything because I can sit here and press this. I mean, also it's not going to export because it's not connected, but you can press it and it's not going to do anything, I don't think. Let's see here. I guess on an empty one it works, but you can actually export the cabinet for some reason? That's weird. I don't know why you would do that exactly. But it's there if you want it. But once again, I was hoping for more options for the expression control, but there still seems to be nothing for that here at the time of this recording at least. That may change, but I really doubt it. So that is the end of my additional knowledge for the computer app. That actually is all of my personal knowledge I have for this unit. However, there is a secret little piece of intel that I've been informed of by some viewers of my previous videos. Since this unit is extremely similar to other brands' units, possibly with the exact same internals, there are other brands making documentation about their units that also may apply to this one as well. Something that is stated as a feature in some of those other user manuals is the ability to use a MIDI switcher with this unit. Unfortunately, I do not own any MIDI switcher devices, so I cannot confirm whether those actually work with this unit, especially that this brand makes no mention of that capability. But some viewers seem to be very confident that this was able to work with one of those additional pieces of equipment. So let me know in the comments down below if you get one of those units up and running with this multi-effects unit, and let me know what you can actually do with it. But that is everything I know about the Jamelo ME-04 multi-effects unit. If you found the video informational or entertaining in any way, please leave a like. If you want to see more about guitar, including other recording tips, consider subscribing and maybe consider becoming a member for the channel. Becoming a member gets you access to my videos earlier and access to some other exclusive content and features on the channel. If you haven't bought this unit for some reason and are watching this video, there will be an affiliate link in the description, as well as other one-time ways to support me down there if you're feeling generous. That's all I have to say for now, so I'm gonna say bye-bye.